annual Global Virtual Summit.
Thank
And before
you.
we start, I would like to describe you about your bio so that everybody in the AirMeet Virtual Summit would know you, and then you can start the talk. Is it okay, Sandra?
Yes, that's fine.
Sandra is an accomplished professional with a BA in journalism and an MBA specializing in leadership and cross cultural communication. With a career spanning broadcasting and marketing, she has worked with major organizations like CNN, Billboard, Sky News, Disney, and played a key role in launching BET and merging Showtime Arabia with Orbit to create OSN. In 2013, she founded Core Beginnings, a leadership development initiative focused on executive coaching for women, especially, and cultivating leadership culture. Sandra also holds an MA in executive coaching and offers coaching and mentoring to leaders in various industries. In 2025, she launched Ignite, a networking event for marginalized leaders. So this is all her the path, the journey of Sandra, and here she is coming with a novel concept, and we would like to hear from you, Sandra. And the stage is all yours.
Thank you. I'm not sure why your camera is not working. Backstage it was fine. Now it seems to not be working. Um,
Can you please
However,
the camera?
excuse me,
You can please switch on the camera. I think
it's
it's
not
not.
working for
No
some
worries.
strange,
Okay. No worries.
yeah, for
Okay.
some
Please
strange
go.
reason it's not working. It was
Yeah, yeah,
working
yeah.
before.
No
So
worries.
if we, I don't know if you can technically sort that out because it was fine before.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, so let's crack on. So have you got the presentation available? Hello? Do you have the presentation available?
Oh, you would like to have the presentation? You have already sent to us, Sandra?
Okay,
Yeah,
I'll
we are
probably,
going to present it. Okay. Thank you.
it's okay. I'll share it myself because, okay. So can you put it in presentation form and have it as a full screen? Okay, I'm going to start. I'm not sure what the issues are from a technical perspective, but I am Sandra Addae. If we can go to the next slide, please. As highlighted, I've been working in broadcast for 2 decades, and then my third decade, I have been working in leadership and coaching. It's been a passion, but yeah, it's been rewarding seeing people, especially in different dynamics within the broadcast industry, grow. And since then, I've launched something called Ignite, which is a platform for people of marginalized voices. I also host Women in Project Management for global women leaders. And also, I have a podcast which is called DA, the Millennial Coach. You'll find it on YouTube and various sites on Apple Podcasts, etc. So, if we go to the next slide, I'm going to be talking about thriving authentically. Next slide, please. So, one of the things about valuing authenticity, most of the time, we don't understand how polarized authenticity can be or cannot be. So, the takeaways I want you to leave with is considering transitioning to a thriving mindset and also self awareness and output. Why are these important? Because a thriving mindset allows you to live within the, the abundance of self. And if you have a fixed mindset, it actually allows you to live in the constraints of yourself. So we want to look at what builds authenticity. And if we really focus on who we are as individuals, what that allows us to do is actually look at what works for us and what doesn't work for us. And I think just listening to Shani previously before me, what was quite important and quite key was understanding the fact that you have your soul self and your real self. So looking at authenticity, so you can go to the next slide, thank you, horizontally and vertically. What we need to understand when we're looking at authenticity is leveraging our core self. So understanding our pain points, and that when I talk about vertical, I talk about working and growing in your workplace, and horizontal is looking at your financial aspects, your spiritual aspects, your personal aspects in terms of what do I truly want, and also unpacking your pleasure points. What do you do? What are the things that you do that make you joyful? Most of the time, we live and we work to a place of exhaustion. We don't stop to think, and we don't have the capacity to stop to think. And with your permission, um, one of the things for me is responding to different dimensions of self in both the horizontal and vertical elements of authenticity. So if we go to the next slide, what that will highlight is thriving for impact, looking at the 8 C's. So if you're wanting to be authentic in your environment, have you got clarity about who you are and your core values as of your beliefs? Do you have control of how you show up in those environments? One of the key things for me is congruency, being congruent in what you say you do, what you commit to doing, and how you show up in terms of your output. Certainty. How certain are you about who you truly are? Because as you grow, you change. And are you in line with the change that happens as you're growing? Most people tend to stick to the same environments because it's familiar. A lot of people tend to focus on what works for them because I've only done this job for 30 years and I don't want to focus on my passion. A lot of people choose not to engage in activities or connect with their children in ways that allow them to feel whole. Sometimes being a parent, you forget that a child grows up. So then you have to transition the relationship. So that then brings challenges. Challenging yourself to grow in different dimensions is one of the areas of authenticity, and knowing that you've changed in order to be the version of yourself that you want to be. Most of us don't tend to do that because being in familiar surroundings is easier. And if we spend time changing, the world around us changes. And sometimes mentally, some people are not ready for that. Change is the epitome of growth. And this is what I work with clients on. If you're ready to change, and one of the things with coaching, and I think there's a lot of people in leadership and culture and working, I work with personal clients and I work with organizations. So when I'm working with personal clients, their goal is to live in their fullness, and particularly women. When you've had children, you tend to lose yourself in being the wife, being the mother, being the employee, but you forget who you were before all that happened. So it's about really observing how you've changed as you've transitioned in different iterations of yourself and making choices. Now, one of the things for choices for impact and thriving is that are the choices that you are making based on societal and cultural elements, or are they choices that you sat down and chose for yourself? Most of the time, as our subconscious runs our life, and 90% of our life, we don't take into consideration that the choices that we've made are not the choices that we've driven. They've been driven by the external. And the thing is, because we are caregivers, our parents, any other caregivers, our grandparents, that's where trust is built when you are growing. They're the only people you are able to trust, and you trust their word. But sometimes when you grow, you realize the world's changed, and according to their word, that's not the way the world operates anymore. You might move to a new country, you might be a child of immigrants, i.e., like myself. And parents bring their culture into a new culture, and then we have a dilution of cultures. So then you have to make new choices that are going to be unfamiliar to your family and unfamiliar to yourself, because it's a whole new paradigm and dimension. And then we go into something called completion. Every stage of our life, if we think about a building, if you've got a ground floor flat, you're not going to have a great view. And as you go up the building, the view gets better and better. But the thing is, you can't complete to the next stage unless you've gone through certain iterations of yourself. So, this is one of the key things about when you're thriving and you're living authentically, you actually have to complete stages within yourself in order to grow. Next slide, please. So, when we think about authenticity, it comes in a range of different aspects. We start with the authentic self. So, looking at authenticity that supports your alignment with your beliefs. As I've just mentioned, some of our beliefs are not our own. Our beliefs are given to us. Our beliefs are adopted through the media. And now we have attention spans of up to 6 seconds. So we have to think about when we are scrolling through stories and shorts on different social media platforms, how is that shaping your beliefs? What are you watching that is shaping your belief? What are you eating that's shaping your belief? How are you judging yourself that is shaping your belief? Your belief and your thoughts then create habits. And your habits then demonstrate to you what you value. So if you're somebody who doesn't actually, appreciate exercise, but you may judge someone who has a fit body, your values are skewed based on how you've shaped your beliefs that have then become your habits. And then your values feed into your emotions on how you relate to other people, which then creates a strategy, a success strategy for life. Now, working with different types of people, we survive. A lot of people are not thriving, they're surviving. And when we survive, we have success strategies. So it may be keeping yourself safe by not. I had a client recently that didn't want to become visible when we did a 3-month program. It's now she's been in Zurich this week and she is making herself visible in the 12 weeks we've worked together. As I said, her beliefs became a habit where she started to sit, go to work, have children, become married, do all the things that society tells us to do. But her success strategy was just to earn money and keep her head above water. Having coached her, visibility has impact on her authentic self, and it's going to allow her to thrive. And so what we've been working on is how to be visible, but also how to utilize language. Language is such an important part of being authentic, how we communicate. And I think there was a speaker, 2 speakers back, who spoke about body language, what we talk about and what we don't say has impact. Your language can be violent or non-violent. And what I mean by that, it may repel someone or may attract someone. And based on all of that coming together, it then creates your identity. Your identity is how people see you, is going to be different to how you see yourself. Hence the reason one of the important aspects of transition is feedback. Because who you think you are is not who you present to the world. And so if you don't know what your identity is, this is really a great moment to start thinking about, who am I and who do I want to become? Next slide, please. So if we think about changes for women in balancing career and life, 60% of women, this is a global report, by the way, feel overwhelmed by work responsibilities. As women, I do want to highlight a really important aspect. Our hormones fluctuate, therefore, we have different experiences throughout the month on month, year on year. So if you're feeling overwhelmed at different times of the month, you have to have compassion for yourself in your journey. As women in the workplace, 56% of us globally are treated differently than men. So I want to take that into consideration, because if you want to thrive authentically, you have to identify some of the challenges that you are facing. In the third area, there's a choice between career and family. How many hours do you work? You have to cook, you have to clean, you have to be present, you have to go to take your children to different activities, you have to be focused in your marriage, you have to take care of your in-laws or your parents, or you've got siblings, you're an auntie. Career and family, 55% globally of women have to choose between career and family. Is that fair in comparison to men? 53 women feel like they lack support or generally lack support. There is a huge gender pay gap, and that is not just in the UK, this is globally. And then the gender pay gap becomes a little bit layered when it becomes racial. So there are a multitude of different things women are balancing on a regular basis just to be present. Limited career advancement, hence the reason I am involved with projects or PRISM in projects or projects in PRISM, sorry. Women are marginalized in a multitude of different ways in a range of different cultures. And that actually impacts people's career advancement. Not taken seriously. I've heard women directors say their piece in a meeting. It's been completely ignored, and a man will say the same thing, yet it's been accepted. We have 37% of women facing burnout. Extremely important. Extremely important. And if you are starting to experience burnout, that can lead to serious illness. And why this is important? Because oxidative stress is a build-up of different experiences that your body can no longer sustain. Therefore, we wonder why we are getting sicker as the years progress. And career not valued enough. That's how women feel. 30% of women feel that their career is not valued enough. So who are we trying to be authentic for? Is this external or is this internal? So this is the one thing that I do want to highlight. And if we move on to the next slide about statistics for female pension disparity. Now, in the Western world, pensions are a big deal. And women, their average amount of savings for their pension in the UK is 36,000. So if our year of our pension age is 67 and we live to 87, is £36,000 going to be sustainable for 20 years? So this is things to consider. Women generally receive lower pensions than men. Globally, women's pensions are often about 60 to 70% of men's pensions. Poverty rates, older women are at a high risk of poverty post-retirement. The labour market participation, women's participation in the workplace significantly impacts their pension entitlements. And the thing is, if women take time off to have children, that there's no reward. Yet we want to populate the world. This is a global issue, not just a Western issue. And I really want people to take heed about the disparity of living authentically through the different elements that we have to face. As individuals, constantly we're trying to chase something outside of ourselves. And if we get the opportunity to stay still, reflect, make different decisions that honor who we are, we can only live authentically from being honest. If there's any resentment, there's any disapproval, sometimes you just have to accept it. So if we move on to the next slide, if we move on a couple more slides, because I've already spoken about those. If we go to the next slide, thank you. Okay, so I've just spoken about that. If we move on to the next slide. So if we think about women in terms of growth, my goal is to empower women through their core work. What is it you're truly enamored to do? What makes you tick? Where are your skills best serving your environment and your actual skill set? Empowered women create action. They bring other women together. And living authentically and thriving is where you are able to provide insights, not just into other people, but into yourself, your growth, your stature. And also, one of the things I want women to consider is, what is your legacy? What is your legacy? Next slide, please. So, what my goal is in terms of how I support women, I support women in regaining their confidence. My program is a 180-day degree journey of self-leadership, horizontally and vertically. I look at all aspects of a woman's life. A woman, when we talk about we want to work and we want to build ourselves in our career, sometimes it's impacted by our home life. And we cannot dismiss what works in our lives in order to be able to thrive in another area. Everything works in tandem. One of the things for me is understanding challenges of how you're regaining confidence in the transition. The other thing I support women do is finding their authentic self, regaining confidence, rediscover your authentic self, and excelling in management and leadership roles. But when I even talk about leadership roles, I'm not necessarily just talking about leadership roles in the workplace. You're leading in your homes. You are leading in your families. If you're taking care of your parents or you're responsible for siblings, you are a leader in that respect. Do not underestimate your input into the world. Your well-being. And the thing is, we are talking about mental health. There is a lot of talk on the soul journey, on the mental health aspect of what's working, productivity and alignment. As women leaders, one of the things that we don't take into consideration is, how do we take care of ourselves? Because if you are not good, the people you engage with can never be good. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, delving into the 180-degree element, one of the things is just understanding, what are your Shiro strategies? How do you navigate returning or growing into the workspace after a career break? Looking at your financial, your spiritual, your social, your emotional elements, updating and upgrading your skills. And that may be just focusing on either whether you have a fixed or you have a growth mindset. If we move to the next slide, I'm just mindful of time. Looking at this empowered 180-degree journey, what participants can expect is prioritizing self-care and mental well-being, productivity hacks, how to optimize time management, set achievable goals and leverage your strengths, lifestyle alignment, balancing work and personal life. So we go on to the next slide, the values and benefits. This will highlight the impact of growing your confidence, reclaiming your personal identity, networking, skill enhancement, holistic approach. So one of the things is really important is coaching women leaders. We are not one-dimensional, we are multi-dimensional beings having, and we're very spiritual, having a human experience. So if you are working with coaches, it's really important to make them understand that you are just not one element. You are a range of different elements. And I create personalized support. So one of the things for me, it's absolutely important as women, next slide, please, offering a project that can help you elevate in 6 months. Will transition your mindset. There's a different way to do things. It doesn't all have to be fast paced. We work at your pace. They're weekly sessions. You build your own network, and I'll show you how to do that. You leverage yourself on LinkedIn professionally. You leverage yourself personally. You leverage yourself with your children. You leverage yourself with your partner. Everything is all encompassing. So if you go to the next slide, please. go again. Sorry, we can just zip through the slides. And so if people are interested in living authentically, the most important thing for me is, where are you now and where do you want to be? How are you leveraging your key skills, and how is that allowing you to be the person that you're destined to be? Most of us are living in a space that has been designed for us. But if we think about what is the design that we have in our hearts that we haven't actually elevated into. Next slide, please. So I just want to say thank you all. Apologies about the camera. It was working absolutely fine earlier. I have tried it multiple times. It's not working, but I am on LinkedIn. You can find me at Sandra at core-beginnings.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop those. Thank you.
Thank you so
Hi.
much. Hi, Sandra.
I can
Thanks.
see you fine. I don't know what the issue is. I've had no
No,
problems beforehand.
no, that's
So
fine.
yeah.
We thoroughly enjoyed the presentation, and all this, whatever the concept, is it available in your Ignite Leadership Networking? I mean, you,
Sorry,
in
can you
this.
repeat that, please?
So whatever the concept of this transformative horizontal and vertical growth aspects in workplace and other, so all these are being taught in your Ignite networking approaches. I mean, that Ignite, whatever you launch.
Yeah. So what it is bringing marginalized voices together in London. So I partnered with the Tao Group, which is a five-star hotel chain across the world. And what I've done is bring broadcasters. So we have people working on a range of broadcasting networks across the UK. We've had entrepreneurs, we've had um, a range of different people who have networks of over 30,000 people come together in one space, and they're all handpicked simply because I believe that we marginalized voices um, can create magic. And I think if we spend time considering, when we meet people, what is the magic that we find in those individuals? Most of the
Mhm.
time, we don't tend to take time to learn about people. We seem to want to rush to get something from someone. So
Yeah.
why can't we, if we're trying to be authentic and you
Hmm.
ask someone how they are, then if
Hmm.
that's what you truly mean, then ask that question. If you don't mean it, don't ask it.
Yeah. Got it. So one of the question is, how does the self-reflection? So you're in the last slide, I think the last before slide, you have talked about the self-reflection. What role does this has an impact on this vertical growth?
Yeah, so that's from Rachel. Thanks, Rachel. Self-awareness, self-reflection is really important. So how you show up is having those, being aware of people's micro expressions. So when you speak,
Mm-hmm.
how do people respond to you? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you can tell when you've said something that isn't working for you. And if you're smart enough to be able to change that, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to be aware when you're having conversations with people. You cannot be
Yes.
talking to people without
Yeah.
awareness. And sometimes culturally, you will see a difference. I lived in the Middle East for 7 years. So when it comes to living in the Middle East for 7 years, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, Indian, Filipino, Arab, and I had to shift how I worked, because people were from a cultural background, which then took me back to how I dealt with my family because they're African. So you really have to have self-awareness, but also ask for feedback about how you're coming across.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you so much, Sandra.
You're
It was
welcome.
very inspiration, and I think these concepts are really warranted, and more of podcasts on this really is needed for the young professionals, work women, especially as there is a completely demand in the CEO roles, managing roles. Self development is very very crucial. I think these type of tips are definitely very useful, Sandra. Thanks for sharing all your insights, and thank you so much for being on stage. And namaste. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. Have a good day.